I got a question for you. Have I ever told you the horse joke before?
I have a feeling that you have, but I don't know.
How much time do we have till we get to Michigan?
How much?
How much time? Like what, 2 days, something like that?
Yeah.
That should be enough time for me to tell you the joke. So, it's a little long, but you have to pay attention to every detail for it to make sense, okay?
Okay.
Alright, it's not too long though, alright, so it goes like this. So there was a horse and a zebra, alright? Now, horse and zebra were best friends, right? They were born in the same town, they grew up together, went to kindergarten together, and they went to middle school together. When they were in middle school, they even had the same homeroom teacher. Her name was Miss Applegate, alright? She was in charge of their math class, you know? And they really liked Miss Applegate. She was a really cool teacher of theirs. So, as time goes on, eventually they go into high school, right? So horse and zebra, they have this little high school band that they started, you know, just having fun or whatever, and eventually they graduate high school. So when they graduated high school, it was a pretty big affair, you know, their parents were proud of them and everything, and all of their friends moved on with their life, and horse and zebra, they went to go work at this paper company, right? So horse and zebra, every weekend they get together and they jam out, you know, they play instruments, you know, just have fun or whatever. Now a couple years have passed since they graduated high school, right? Now they've been working at this paper company up in Scranton, Pennsylvania for a while now. So they've been working up there for a bit, and eventually, you know, horse and zebra, they they're playing one weekend, one Saturday night, they're jamming out, and horse is like, you know what, zebra, this is a lot of fun, but do you remember back in our old high school days when we had that band and everything? And zebra was like, yeah, you know, I remember those days, that was a lot of fun. So horse is telling zebra, he's like, hey, maybe we should, you know, form a band again, you know, it'd be pretty cool. And at first zebra laughs at that, he's like, yeah, right, you know, we could never do, you know, a band like that, we can't do that with work and everything. But the horse is like, no, zebra, I'm serious, we could do this. Maybe we can put up an ad on Craigslist and we could try to see if we can get other band members. This would be really cool. So zebra's like, you know what, why not, you know, what do we have to lose, you know what I mean? So horse and zebra, they put up an ad on Craigslist, right? They're like, hey, you know, this Saturday and this Sunday we're going to be looking for people, you know, they need a drummer, a backup guitarist, and a backup singer, right? So, you know, time goes on. All week, they're really excited. They cannot wait, all right? You know, they're just, you know, doing their jobs, but in their head, they're super excited for this. And even though their coworkers are always doing quirky pranks on each other, they can just ignore that for this week because soon Saturday is coming, right? So finally, Saturday comes, and they sit down early in the morning in their garage, and they're waiting for someone to show up, right? So they're waiting, and they're waiting, and they wait a little bit longer, and then they wait just a little bit longer, and they wait a little bit longer, and eventually somebody shows up. It's a hippopotamus. And this hippopotamus says that they're a great drummer. And they're like, all right, you know, let's jam out a little bit, see what they can do. Now, the hippopotamus, he can hit a solo like, you know, nobody's business. No problem hitting the solo at all. But when it comes to playing in beat with everybody else, he kind of has a little bit of trouble with that. So horse and zebra are like, all right, you know, we'll call you if we need you. And so they decide to wait a little bit longer for someone else to show up. So they're waiting, and they're waiting, and they're waiting, and they wait a little bit longer. And then finally, a giraffe shows up, right? Are you following me here? It's a giraffe. So this giraffe, he shows up and he's like, hey, I can play the drums pretty well, right? So the giraffe plays the drums. He can hit a great solo, he can keep it in beat with the others, and like, all right, this is fantastic. So horse and zebra are like, you know what, you're great, you know, we want you in on the band. And giraffe is like, oh, thanks, I've been looking, you know, to do something like this, looking for a gig like this for a while. So giraffe joins the band. So now it's the horse, who's the lead singer, the zebra, who's the lead guitarist, and the giraffe, who's the lead drummer, right? Now they just need a backup vocalist and a backup guitarist. So they sit there and they wait all night, you know, nobody's showing up, so they're just waiting. Eventually they order a pizza, jam out a little bit, have some fun. They're waiting, and 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 no one shows up, right? So they all, you know, part ways for the night, and they come back, you know, Sunday morning, and now they're waiting for someone else to show up. So they're waiting, and they're waiting, and they're waiting, And then a hyena shows up, and the hyena's like, I'm a great singer, I've always wanted to be in a band. So they give the hyena a shot, right? So what does hyena do? He goes to sing. He can hit the high notes perfectly, but he can't hit any of the low notes. So horse is like, oh, we need you to be able to hit the high and low notes. And hyena's like, but it's always been my dream to be in a band. And horse is like, well, maybe if you get some lessons or practice more, maybe you'll be able to achieve your dreams someday. So now they're waiting a little bit longer for someone to show up, and eventually someone else does show up. All right, it's a panther. Now this panther shows up and he's like, I'm a guitarist. So he plays the guitar and he does a fantastic job playing the guitar, right? But then he's like, I can also sing. So they're like, all right, let's see what you can do. So he can sing and play the guitar. So now they're like, all right, you can join the band. You're fantastic. So now the band is the giraffe, the zebra, the panther, and horse. And all together, they decide to call their band the Animals. So the Animals play in their little garage every single weekend, right? You know, they all have their own jobs and stuff during the week, but every weekend they play in their garage. And it's fantastic. They have tons of fun playing together. Eventually, after a couple of weeks, it starts to become a tradition where people in the neighborhood, they started to notice that they're playing this music in their garage every day. So they decided that they were going to start showing up. It'd become like a neighborhood tradition, if you would, So what they would do is essentially they would pull up every single weekend and they would have a grill out. They'd let their kids, run around the yard, have a good time. And so eventually it became sort of a really big neighborhood tradition to listen to the Animals every weekend. So one weekend they're jamming out, right? Doing their thing, and a man driving by, he stops, gets out of his car, sits there and listens to them for a while, and he loves their sound. He thinks it's fantastic. So once they're done playing, he approaches them and he's like, hey, I'm the owner of the local O'Reilly's Pub. It's a bar, and I want you guys to come play next weekend. It's like, I can guarantee you guys a little bit of money and maybe some tips if people really enjoy your work, right? So are you following me here? Because this is where it gets really good, all right? So next weekend comes, and they all show up to the O'Reilly's bar. Now, they're a little nervous, they have a big crowd there, but it's all right. At first, all of the people were pretty upset because Saturday is karaoke night, and they had to cancel it for the Animals. And as you know, Animals love their karaoke. So when they canceled it for the band, the Animals, a lot of them were pretty upset. But the Animals went on stage and they played, and after they were done playing, everyone was just silent. And then that silence soon turned into an eruption of applause. Like, people absolutely loved them. It was incredible. It was a sound that nobody ever heard before. And they were getting tons of tapes, making a lot of money. So they decided that, from now on, every weekend they were going to come to O'Reilly's Pub and they were going to play. So time goes on, weekends pass, they play every day, make a little bit of money. But then one day, someone else shows up, a man in a business suit, right? So when they're done playing, this man, he approaches them and he's like, hey, I really like your guys' sound, and I actually work with the record company. And he's like, look, I've signed on some of the greats. I signed on the Beatles, I signed on Lil Wayne, some of the greatest people ever, Lil Yachty, all the great rock stars of the past he's signed on, right? And he's like, I really like you guys, and I need someone to open for the band Slipknot at Madison Square Garden in 2 weeks. Now, I know it's sudden, but I would love to sign you guys on and have you guys there. So they're a little stunned, right? I mean, that's something that they weren't expecting at all to happen. And so they have a little huddle. They talk to each other, and they're like, do we really want to do this? Make this jump to being a professional band, And so Horse is like, listen, Zebra, do you want to keep working at the same paper company, working for our quirky boss while our coworkers play unprofessional pranks on each other every single day? What kind of life is that, really? And then he turns to Giraffe and he's like, Giraffe, you've been working the same minimum wage job for the last 3 years. They're not going to promote you anytime soon. Do you really want to keep doing that? And he goes to Panther and he's like, Panther, you don't really even have a job. You're still living with your parents, Do you want to keep doing that forever? So they all talk about it for a little while and they're like, you know what? We can do this. We got this. So like, Horse, you're right. This could be something incredible. So they all decide that they're going to do it. Now, 2 weeks go by. They practice and practice and practice, and now the time comes. All right, they're at Madison Square Garden, about to go on stage. They're nervous as heck, right? Zebra's throwing up in a garbage can. They're all a bit worried. Giraffe is like, I'm not sure that we can do this. But Horse is like, listen, guys, we got this, all right? Let's just play like we always do. Everything will be fine. So they sit there and they wait, right? Eventually, the stage goes quiet. The crowd starts to settle down. And the announcer comes on. It's like, opening for the band Slipknot are The Animals, a brand new indie band out of Pennsylvania. So the Animals walk out there. Everyone's like, all right, let's see what these guys got. So you're following, right? Because don't worry, this joke is really, really good. Just wait, the punchline's coming. So they go, right, and they play. And everybody was like cheering them on. Everyone's like, holy crap, this is the best music we've ever heard. This is fantastic. They're all shouting, encore, encore, encore. So they do an encore. They play again and again and again. But eventually they have to stop playing because they're only an opening band. So they go off stage and Slipknot goes on stage and they get booed off the stage because nobody likes Slipknot anyway. They're like, yo, you're garbage. Boo, get off the stage. Bring back on the Animals, So the Animals come back on stage and they play all night long. People love it. They love their music, right? So once it's over with, their agent, he's like, man, that was fantastic. I just got off the phone with the executives of the record company and they want you guys to have a single out by tomorrow. We can get a full album soon. So they decide that they're going to release their first single, right? And so they go to the recording studio, they record it, their single gets released, and then following that, soon their whole album would be released, right? But in order to celebrate the release of their album, they decided that they should do a tour. They're going to do a national tour all across America, right? So you ask yourself, if you're about to do an international tour across America like that, where would you go? Where would you think you would start?
I don't know.
That's right, Paris, Texas. So they go to Paris, Texas, and they play there, and people absolutely love it, right? People are like, oh, this is fantastic music. So they travel all across the country. They go to LA, they go to San Fran, they go to New York, they go to Seattle, they go to Houston, they go to San Antonio, they go to Detroit, they go to Grand Rapids, they go to Cleveland, they go to Cincinnati, they go to Chicago, they go to whatever city Wisconsin has. They're traveling all across America. They even travel internationally at one point by going to Toronto. So, their tour brings them all over the place, right? And people are all loving it. Every venue is sold out. It's fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. So, time goes on a little bit. Next year comes, and now they have another album they're going to release, another new single, another new album, all that. And their agent's like, hey, to celebrate this, your second album release, we're going to put you guys on an international tour this time, all right? So now you got to think, if you're going to travel, or internationally around the world like that, where do you think you would start?
I don't know.
That's right, Midland, Michigan. So they begin in central Michigan, right there in Midland. Sold out venue, same as always, people love it. So from there they go to, Iceland, they go to Dublin, Ireland, they get kicked out of Dublin, Ireland, they go to Scotland, they go to England, they skip France because people don't want to go to France. They go to Germany, Berlin, they go to, Russia, they go to the Middle East, they go to China, they even go to North Korea because it turns out that Kim Jong-un is actually a huge fan of the Animals, So after they're done there, they finish their tour in Tokyo, right? So once they're done playing, they have this big after-party celebration, right? So while they're celebrating, at one point, this old man, this businessman, comes up to Horse, and he's like, "You're looking a little tired." And Horse is like, "Yeah, partying like this is fun, but I think I'm gonna, turn in for the night." And he's like, "Oh, but the night's so young." And Horse is like, "Yeah, I'm just a little bit tired." So the businessman pulls out a bag full of white powder, and he's like, "Hey, whenever I need to stay awake, I take a little bit of this, all right? All you gotta do is take this stuff, and I guarantee you can party all night long." But Horse isn't too sure about that, right? He's not too sure about taking drugs, but at the same time, Panther, he smokes the Mary Jane, the marijuana, the oregano, the devil's lettuce, and every once in a while Giraffe is popping paprika, so he's not 100% against drugs. He's just never really done it before. So he thought about it, and he's like, you know what, I'll give it a shot. Why not? So he takes the bag of mysterious white powder and he snorts it just as the old man, directs. It turns out that it is the cocaine, right? So the cocaine gets in his system and he's all awake now and he parties all night long, right? So now that tour is over, they come back to America. They release more albums. Time goes on. The animals get bigger and bigger and bigger, right? But now they start to drift apart from one another. It's been over a decade since they started. And now, as time goes on, even despite their success, they all start moving on, doing other things, right? But now, Horace has never left that rock star lifestyle. He's still doing drugs, he still has groupies and everything, and eventually, he ends up living in this Beverly Hills mansion. He has 32 Lamborghinis, he has 6 monster trucks, he has 4 pools all shaped like him. He's crazy rich. But now the money is starting to slow down, and he gets a notice from the bank of repossession for literally everything he owns. And the groupies are starting to leave him, so he's like, hey, I need to fix this. What can I do? I know, I'll get the band back together, right? So Horace contacts the agent at the record company, and he's like, hey, why don't we get the band back together and do a comeback tour, right? So he decides that he's going to go track down everyone else. So he hires a private detective, right? And so this private detective, he goes around the world to try to find where everyone else is. So the first person he discovers is Draff, right? So it turns out that Draff had moved to Tibet to become a monk. And so now Horace has to go hire a bunch of Sherpas in order to help guide him through the mountains. He makes his way all the way through the mountains and he finds the lost city of Shangri-La. Now, the lost city of Shangri-La is an ancient city, and only those who are truly pure of heart are allowed to enter there. Horace is an exception because Draff knows that he's coming. So Horace approaches Draff, who is floating above the air in meditation, and he's like, Draff, I've come for you. And Draff is like, Horace, I know, I foresaw it. For here in Shangri-La, I have all the answers to the universe. And Horace is like, I'm getting the band back together. And Draff is like, I know you are, but if I leave Shangri-La, I will no longer be able to have the answers to all the universe. All this knowledge is forgotten. And Horace is like, yeah, but there's going to be drugs and women. And Draff is like, yeah, sounds like a good enough reason. So Draff is on board, right? So they fly back to America. So now they need to find Panther and Zebra still. Hey, you're following this, right?
Yeah.
Don't worry. The punchline is coming.
Just get to the end. I don't care what the joke is. Just get to the end.
It'll be there soon. Don't worry.
No, you won't. I know you. You won't be there soon.
5 more minutes, all right?
No.
So they have to find the others, right? So it turns out that Panther is actually in South America. He was captured by the cartel. So Horace convinces a team of Navy SEALs to go in there and help rescue Panther. So they go there, and they attack the compound and they rescue Panther. And Panther's like, Horace, I wasn't expecting to see you. And Horace is like, yeah, we're getting the band back together. Draff is already on board. We just need to find Zebra. And Panther, he's like, oh, sweet. I'd love to be back in the band again. So now all they need to do is find Zebra. Now, Zebra, he since got married, has kids, and him and his wife, they run an orphanage, right? And Horace goes to Zebra and he's like, hey, we're getting the band back together. And Zebra's like, well, Horace, that might be difficult. I have a life now. I'm running this orphanage with my wife and everything. And Horace is like, why don't you just come with us? It'll be fine. But then Zebra's like, well, I need somebody to run the orphanage. And Horace is like, don't worry about it. They're just a bunch of kids. What are they going to do? Tell their parents? And Zebra's like, you right. So Zebra leaves the orphanage behind in the care of his wife. And so now the whole band is back together. So they go to the agent of the record company, and the agent's like, all right, now these guys have a band back together. You're going to do the comeback tour, right? So if you got to ask yourself, if you're going to do a comeback tour, after all these years, where do you think you would start?
I don't care.
That's right, London, Kentucky. So they go to London, Kentucky, and they go there and they, get ready to play on stage once again. It's been years since the Animals have been on stage. So, the lights dim, right? The whole crowd goes quiet. And there's an announcer who comes over everyone, right? And this announcer, he's like introducing the Animals. Everyone's like, yeah, the animals, yeah. And he goes to introduce them one by one. He's like, the best drummer the world has ever seen, it's Draft. And everyone's like, yeah, Draft, yeah, it's Draft. So Draft comes running on stage and he sits down at his little drums, right? And they're like, the best backup guitarist and vocalist you've ever heard of, it's Panther. Everyone's like, yeah, it's Panther, Panther. He comes running out on stage, right? And they're like, it's the world's greatest guitarist, Zebra. Everyone's like, yeah, Zebra, it's Zebra. So Zebra comes running out on stage, and they're like, and the front man for the band, the main vocalist, Horse. Everyone's like, yeah, Horse, yeah, it's Horse, yeah, we love Horse, yeah, Horse, yeah. So Horse comes running out on stage, right? Everyone's cheering and everything, but now the lights dim once more. Fog machine starts putting fog all over the stage. Everyone goes quiet. All of a sudden, Panther starts strumming on his guitar. Then Zebra begins strumming on his guitar, right? And then all of a sudden, freaking Draft, he begins banging it out on the drums. And then Horse, he goes to begin singing. And then Horse, he throws up all over the stage and passes out, right? And everyone's like, oh, what just happened? What the heck's going on? So they rush him to the hospital, and it turns out that he just did a whole bunch of drugs before then, right? And he almost OD'd. So that's, it's definitely not good. So Horse obviously has a problem now, and the others really realize this. So Zebra talks to the others and like, hey, we need to hold an intervention for Horse. We can't do this comeback tour if he's all strung out on drugs. This isn't good for him. We need to make sure he's better. We need to help him. So they decide that they're going to do an intervention.
It's been 5 minutes.
Okay, 5 more minutes.
No.
It's almost done. Don't worry. So they decide they're going to do an intervention for Horse, right? So they go to Horse's Beverly Hills mansion, and they're like, hey, leave your mansion unlocked because we're going to do a party for this comeback tour. So the party, was actually not true. They were actually going to do an intervention. So Horse, he eventually shows up, and they're like sitting in a circle. Horse is like, hey, what's going on here? And Zebra's like, look, Horse, you have a problem. That's what we're here. We need to talk to you about that. And Horse is like, nay, I don't have a problem. You have a problem. And he knocks over a bunch of chairs and he storms out all mad. And so that's when Zebra starts talking to the others. He's like, look, as long as Horse is living this rock star lifestyle, he's never going to be able to recover. The only way that we can fix this is to oust him from the band. The others are like, are you serious? And Zebra's like, it's the only way. So they decided to get rid of Horse. But first they need another, vocalist and frontman. So they decide to go on the job hunt looking for somebody to replace him, right? They hold auditions and a bunch of different people come, but eventually they find a man who's a hyena, and this hyena is fantastic. He can hit the high notes, he can hit the low notes. This hyena is wonderful. So they're like, hey, hyena, like, you're hired. You're 100% the new front man for the band. Hyena's like, thanks for this opportunity. I've always wanted to be in a band and everything. And they're like, yeah, all right. So they have the new front man for the band. So now Zebra, he needs to go tell Horse that he's been ousted from the band, right? So Zebra, he goes to his Beverly Hills mansion, and he knocks on the door, and Horse answers it, and he's like, oh, Zebra, are you ready to party? And Zebra's like, look, Horse, I need to tell you from something. We decided to oust you from the band. And at first, Horse is stunned. He's like, this has to be a joke, right? And Zebra's like, no, we already found someone to replace you. It's a hyena. Now, Horse, he feels betrayed. He feels backstabbed, He feels like Caesar, and Zebra is Brutus, He's like, oh, man, this is horrible. So Horse, he shuts the door in Zebra's face, and he's like, man, this is awful. I can't believe this just happened to me. So Zebra and the animals, they go on. People are a little off-put by Hyena at first, but they grow to love him, People like Hyena. A lot of people even saying Hyena sounds better than Horse, right? So while the band is touring, Horse, he fell even deeper into depression. He started taking more drugs and, becoming an alcoholic and everything. But he's running out of funds quickly. So the bank comes, they repossess his 15 monster trucks, his 33 Lamborghinis, his 8 McLarens. They threaten to take his house away. All of his groupies have left him. Horse has practically nothing, he tried to hole up in his house, but eventually the authorities came and pulled him outright. And so now Horse, he's the last bit of his money to get back home, to get back to Pennsylvania. And now, he's broke. He's on the street. So then he's sitting there in the rainstorm, right? It's raining out, and he has nothing, just sitting on the side of the street wondering what to do. And then a man walks by, and he hands Horse a $20 bill. And Horse sits there in the rain, and he looks at that $20 bill, and he thinks to himself, what am I going to do with this? But then he looks up, And through the rainstorm, he sees the neon glow of a sign, O'Reilly's Pub. And he decides he's going to go back to where all this started. He's going to get a job and he's going to put his life back together. So he he gets up, storms all the way down the street, and then a horse walks into a bar and the bartender asks why the long face.
God damn it! God, I fucking knew it was gonna. I knew it was gonna be something stupid. God, oh my god. Oh my god.
That's the famous horse joke. That was 24 minutes.
24 minutes of my life I will never get back. Oh my god.
If you think that's bad, the longest I've ever had it last was almost 2 hours.
Oh my god. If this weren't documented.
I love telling that joke. I guess I should stop horsing around and saying jokes like that, huh? Get it? Stop horsing around because it's the horse joke.
I got it.
You seem a little upset there.
Do I?
It's a nice day out today, isn't it? Know the origin of why the horse has a long face. Now you know why.
I didn't care if the horse had a long face.
But now you know why.
I don't care.